are Yavapais. We are the descendants of a great people who have fought hard to keep our tribal identity. Arizona is our home, and our creation story begins in the Verde Valley and the Red Rock of Sedona. Our people emerged from underground at the Haikasiva, also known as Montezuma's Well. We made our first home in Sedona, a place we call Weebuk.
And that's where the first woman created her daughter, and her daughter created Skatagamcha right there. So that's why we're born people of the sun and people of the water, because the water dripped into her, and then the sun hit it and germinated and gave her the child.
Experts say our people have been around for centuries. We lived off the desert, hunting deer and other game, and eating desert plants like the fruit of the saguaro cactus. Our women wove baskets and made pottery. Our men built homes from what the desert offered, and we made our clothing from hides. Originally, our homeland stretched more than 12 million acres. And we had four major bands. The Yavapai and Weebukpa lived in the Verde Valley and Sedona area. The Tulkapayas made their home near Wickenburg. And finally, the Kawevkapayas were the ones who called Fort McDowell home. Life was good for our people, but change was in the wind.
Yeah. To buy a year. Yeah.
Spanish explorers passed through, and little by little, other non-Yavapais found their way to our home. But in 1863, it was the lure of gold that brought the most non-Yavapais to our area. Camp McDowell was formed, and soldiers were assigned to protect the gold diggers from our people. Then ranchers arrived and wanted all of our land for themselves. The U.S. government decided to end the friction by sending our people to live at forts such as Camp Date Creek, Camp Verde, and Camp McDowell. But instead of finding peace, the Yavapais found hunger and disease. Gifts of blankets were infested with the smallpox virus, killing many of our people. Overwhelmed by these conditions, our people fled for their lives. It was a war we would fight for years. In 1872, General George Crook ordered all Apache Indians be put on reservations. All others would be hunted down and killed. This case of mistaken identity led to one of the worst massacres of our people
at Skeleton Cave. As General Crook's troops swept through the Tonto Basin, about 100 Yavapais found themselves trapped in a cave. Thinking they were the outlaw Apaches, the troops fired at them, killing many of them.
Uma.
The man shot Peter Pakamach Committee.
My child.
I told what 1923 tiaka tek de pakbu tiaka tek afganyo kwelo mal tikak organ we khal we te patmal tu te patmal ite hipat mulu hoyek pa oi patmal tik
Shortly after our people were again attacked in Bloody Basin, they weren't renegades. They were simply gathering mescal beans. And a promise of horses and other items lured some Yavapais to Skull Valley, where they again met with death.
Supokorgi cuma kui pakamonte cahi supokan ikanau. Majuak it ke mir ngabiam tema me matakot mchatata ka mabiam mit bich squinu ke music mauri igumag okyo pam kanab jo solta pan kamwaji kiu ju majuak miti item na hadwa ur khayat wa ur chigit ma paje je cuma mamwa ur ka nibich em ka ko wa miti ija pep kini chuak ke pakanab tam ni sach ko yu chuak ni wil pam ki tum ke payo jam.
Scared, angry, but determined to stay in their homeland, many Yavapais fled to their sacred four peaks and superstition mountains, hoping to find a sanctuary. For the children who fell into the hands of the Pimas and Maricopas, captivity led to slavery. Except for one young captive, Wasja was probably between 5 and 7 years old when the Pimas caught him and sold him to Carlo Gentili. His name was changed to Carlos Montezuma. He was to later play a vital role in our survival. By the mid-1870s, the captive Yavapais were living on the reservation near Camp Verde. But once again, white settlers convinced the government to move us off the land. In March of 1875, the U.S. Cavalry rounded up Yavapais and started marching them to San Carlos Apache Reservation, hundreds of miles away.
Had pay in Nakolad. Man Huni. He could them Hakoko by cafe with how good be jam up. Who had he Pui in the week. Yam Jome. Yung u nhà cô hết cái nhà cà phê phi nhâm nghiệm tu ha mà còn họ chăm mà vậy thì phi un cả yêu cái bê còn đấy còn mẹ yêu cái đấy bảo là ba chiêu mức bao am thì cái yam chung ui mà cái chuyện bám nhà pai cái lao cái là mua cái nhà mà cái tàu quân Pakama chia cái này mi cha yêu nhà hay cha bị tì cái đó nhà tear cái gì là tear we turn into tears is that nhà music patchy tear drops it me Yavapai Jujita.
Chích yêu cái. Tuin pe payok pawam chích yết cái han pawam chăm Iba patay wacha chucho sa mol hachita askuil ka konum ha greb am chit u tikya chita chiku kabik smal ka pem ke tamayata kwani mi ke mi gimi ma ome ik soltao che a kyat u che ko ik ke mi mal ke ma me mishek mi ge Ibu kalebo like pa cium pawam tikit yam tum kuya man kachi pam Yavapai kit.
Our people walked across the desert, through the Makion Rim, and into the Salt River Canyon, finally coming to San Carlos.
Em vừa giống cái chuyện.
Hiện cái quên mà vậy thì từ cái lui mà cái Palau là cái chùm tôi của thao mà chùm mỏ gọi là như cái pam họ có cái food line cái food line commodity yo take up cái rồi liệu cái work vậy thì chút nhát cả cái làm sao bố cái mà mấy đứa cái yo Ôi mình biết thì ôi quên mà phải vô cái mua chứ ăn chứ biết cái khoác cái gì phải cái chứ mày không phải thì
Many people sometimes mistake Yavapais for Apaches. One reason could be a misunderstanding of the word Apache, which sounds like Apache, but is really a Yavapai word that means people.
The Yavapai Apache lived at San Carlos for 25 years, always under the close watch of the U.S. Cavalry. Foundation of the old fort now lie underwater at San Carlos Lake, and our people never lost their desire to return to their homeland. In the early 1900s, they got their wish and were able to return home.
Can you imagine what it is to walk from here to San Carlos? And when they were told that they were free to come home, they simply dropped everything they had and just took what they could in their arms and walked home.
Ai cô chỉ pa buk tất khai chỉ pan tập pe chấm cái am vô cái am cái Phoenix and Bam cái.
But they found settlers living on the fertile land around the Verde River. Our people were forced to make their homes on the barren hillsides.
The wife of Chief Yuma Frank knew how to read and write. She began a letter campaign to the U.S. government demanding the Yavapai rights to the land. Yuma Frank even traveled to Washington, D.C., but he was turned away and told to come back with more Yavapai representatives. And in 1903, 4 men risked being arrested when they left the reservation for D.C.
But Yuma Frank, Tom Sarama, and Charles Dickens felt the risk was worth it, worth fighting for their traditional homelands. That year, an executive order issued by President Theodore Roosevelt created the Fort McDowell Reservation. Settlers were removed from the reservation and the Yavapais moved closer to their precious water. But the homecoming didn't end our struggle, and we still had to endure the government's attempt to assimilate us.
Our children were sent off to boarding schools where they learned English and forgot our traditional ways. But some out-tricked the nosy deputies who came to round up the children.
Tao mò chứ ta mua chay có mà tê cái cái nhà thô được chú cái mua ra cha qua trong cái u chăm này tuin be bao am thì cái yết cái han bao am trong như vậy bao tay quá trời
Nhất mà hàm nhất làm xí tức về hai cô kèm ế vợ mẹ tôi bài quyền qua mà chả.
Ông kể hai côผมtôi là quê phía là nhiều cho mình see exploit cái bên bên cái nhà hai cô number cho mình exploit từ cái chịu exploit từ 1 3 4 6 9 tất cả ý điểm they happen malam halai pada.
And even though we had a bona fide homeland, the Bureau of Indian Affairs tried to move our people to the Salt River Reservation.
Then the city of Phoenix built a pipeline across our land, straight to the waters of the Verde, without our permission and without any compensation.
Wasaja, the young boy captured by the Pimas, he was adopted by a white man who changed his name to Carlos Montezuma. The boy grew up in Illinois and was educated. He became the first Yavapai medical doctor. But most importantly, Carlos Montezuma never forgot his true people. And in 1922, he returned home. And he led us to victory. Our people were able to stay at Fort McDowell. But sadly, we lost our great leader, Carlos Montezuma. Wasja died on January 31st, 1923. As he requested, he was buried in his homeland. While we were able to stay in our homeland, we didn't get the right to self-government until 10 years later.
Under the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934, tribes were able to set up their own governments by electing a tribal council.
Hắn cái team cái cậu ý chung cái pan canal cái mũi chung mình team chung pan yêu chung.
Then came Orem Dam and the fight over precious water.
In 1947, a plan was made to dam the Verde River and store water from the Colorado River. The U.S. Congress also considered a bill that would protect Phoenix in case the Verde River flooded. That was part of the Central Arizona Project. Congress enacted the bill in 1968, but no one bothered to consult the Yavapais, even though this proposed dam would flood our homes. In 1972, however, we became aware of the Central Arizona Project and began to campaign against it.
Khatam chanom kono igen. Ham hapek kai chme vama Orem Dam.
Ev kapel ka wal yo wicha ki jali ramen. Ka pan to pe cha kami wasi ni men lao ni han ki wichum kom imen. Ma lao pan to pe ka i men.
We were offered money to move, but our culture, our spirituality, land, and water were more important than money.
Support for our cause grew when we staged a 3-day Trail of Tears march to the state capital in 1980.
Hai cô chỉ pa buk tất khai chỉ pan to pe chum cái am vô cái am cái Phoenix and Baham cái
Emma Johnson, she's the one that changed the vote. She said, I can't read this vote. I don't understand it. I just want, do you want Orm Dam, yes or no? So we had it changed to simply say yes or no.
We won. And the following year, the federal government announced plans to find a different site for the dam.
In 1981, we opened a bingo hall. That gambling operation grew a few years later to include slot machines and card games. The economic impact was tremendous. And then the federal and state government tried to shut us down. And under orders from the U.S. Attorney's Office, federal agents armed with weapons raided the Fort McDowell casino and ripped out the machines. But at Fort McDowell, our people resisted. We marched to the state capitol in a show of strength and unity. And in the end, we won. The federal mediator ruled in our favor. We signed a compact with the state and resumed our gaming operation. Once again, with our sovereignty and livelihood threatened, we prevailed. Revenues generated from the gaming operations have allowed us to build a health clinic and name it after our beloved Wasja. Our children can play and exercise at our recreation center. Tribal members have new computers. There's even a computer center for our students. The nearby city of Fountain Hills is also benefiting from our casino revenues. We donated a state-of-the-art fire truck to the local fire department.
The tribe also gave a $1 million grant to Arizona's 3 universities. We are also investing in our own people by offering them full college scholarships.
Besides gaming, the tribe has prospered in other areas. Our sand and gravel operation helps the nation meet its demands for road and building materials. From its humble beginning, the Baja gas station has grown to a large operation, complete with a convenience store. 60,000 pecan trees at the Fort McDowell farms hold the promise of more prosperity in the future. We entertain thousands of visitors each year at the Fort McDowell Adventures. City slickers get the chance to ride a bucking bronco or rope a calf. Or take a leisure ride through our beautiful ancestral lands. Our history has taught us to remain vigilant and act swiftly to protect our way of life. Future generations of Yavapais must never forget their ancestors and the struggle and the suffering they have endured.
Fort McDowell.
As we near the millennium,
we are prepared to face this new century
with a whole new generations of leaders
and warriors to continue our legacy.